Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement. Good day, viewers, and welcome to the program, Agriculture on the Move. I am Philip Sidney, your host. Today, I would like to also welcome you to the studio of the National Television Network, NTN. Our discussion today surrounds activities that have affected the banana production recently. And with me to discuss this program is, to my immediate right, is Mr. Alkena Janki, who is an officer attached to the Banana Productivity Improvement Unit, BPIP. And next to him, we have farmer exporter, Mr. Nicholas Faisal. And then to the end, we have Mr. Cletus Alexander, who is the crop protection officer in the research division in the Department of Agriculture. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you.
Janki, before we really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities, I just want you to just give an overview of the operations of the BPIP.
Okay, the BPIP is a project set up by the government of St. Lucia with support from the Taiwanese fund, ICDF, and that project started in 2017, in April 2017, and the goal of the project is to increase production and productivity. Yes. When we came in, we were of the expectation that they had approximately 3,000 acres of bananas on the production. However, when we went about surveying using GIS, we realized that we only had about 1,117 acres thereabout. Okay. So we had to work to increase our production base.
Okay. So where you're at now, because I remember when the project was organized, production levels were at 6 tons to the acre, all right, and your levels were to increase it to what, to 16 tons? Where are you now?
Well, our overall goal is to try to reach 20 tons to the acre. Mm-hmm. However, we did a survey in between July, August, and September last year, mm-hmm. and we found that our production is approximately between 14 and 16 tons to the acre.
Okay. But I know, for example, we have produced bananas up to 40 tons to the acre. I know in model farms we did that. So I mean, that's nothing new, Janki. So yeah. I'm hoping that you'll hopefully to get there someday.
Yes, definitely. Right now, as we speak, in the Cronlands Deglo area, we are reaching at 23 tons to the acre.
Oh, it is very good. Okay. I know the other aspect, apart from the, increasing production and quality, there is the section of pest control and the control of black sigatoka. Tell us a little about that.
Well, the black sigatoka is a very important pest, mm-hmm. if I could put it that way, to us in the banana industry. And it's very important that we manage it and manage it effectively. Mm-hmm. So what we do, we have a system of monitoring the disease, where we have what we call reference sites. These are farms that represent a geographic location. And we would monitor the disease levels on these farms on a weekly basis. And based on the disease levels, then we would do a treatment intervention. Okay. We would spray the farms for the disease.
So where are you at now? I mean, are you farmer satisfied? You all are satisfied? Are you on point? The objective is being met?
Well, right now, as we speak, the disease level is probably managed. Mm-hmm. However, there are a number of factors that could affect the disease levels, mm-hmm. and waterlogging, weed levels, the trashing, and all these things could affect the disease levels. Okay. Now, a lot of it depends on what the farmer does in the field. So all you could do is encourage this farmer to do the necessary practices.
Which is good agricultural practices.
Yes.
Good.
But if the farmer chooses not to do it,
yeah.
then you have a problem.
Yeah.
So we have to encourage the farmer and work with him to ensure that these farms are properly managed.
Okay, COVID came in, which has of course affected a number of, well, worldwide. I mean, that the coronavirus was I mean, very significant, and I think it's still around. But however, during the lockdown, tell us exactly how your office was able to operate with the farmers.
Well, what we had to do, we were able to provide the farmers with the necessary pass that they needed to go to the farms and to take a worker with them. But what happened is that the farmers were not able to have the requisite number of workers that they would need.
Right.
So it would have affected their production and productivity and limited what could have been done on the farm. So in that way, it would have limited or reduced, caused a reduction in their production and the practices that needed to be done.
So, Mr. Faisal, from a farmer standpoint, how did COVID affect you as a farmer? And of course, did it have any effect on your exporting business?
Well, I think the fact that the farmers were able to get passes to access their farms, that intervention was strategic and important. It would have affected the farmer a lot more if that support didn't come through the system. So he was able to go to his farm and do what he was accustomed of doing without significant delays, so to speak. Again, because of the farm, the activities on the farm, what we saw happening was farmers probably returning, because the typical farmer goes to his farm like 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, and 11, 12, 1 o'clock would be back home. So in a sense, it fell within the curfew period and allowed the farmer to operate seamless, it would seem. However, we were not, the farmer was affected a lot more by the dry spell than the problems associated with the COVID.
Okay, so we'll come to that.
Yes, and as far as production was concerned, production continued. As a matter of fact, on the day of the curfew, the lockdown, when it took effect, we had just purchased, in fact, we had almost 2,500 cases of bananas ready to ship the next morning.
Wow.
And the vessel was already in port. But it required a lot of mobilization and networking. But we successfully got that vessel out of the island on the evening of Wednesday, that day when the lockdown commenced. So, and since then, we have continued to export bananas, although in a significantly reduced production level.
But during COVID, were you able to get the production levels that you needed?
No, no, because
so
already to an extent, the dry season too was already affecting production.
At that point in time?
Yes, it was.
So, Janky, I know based on that, there is a post-COVID stimulus package to the farmers, okay? When I say farmers, farmers in general, okay? But however, we're sticking to bananas. What it is that the government have in store for the banana farmers?
Well, the government through the BPIP have provided the support to farmers with regards to one treatment of fertilizer, one application of fertilizer at 2 50 kg bags per acre or 4 25 kg bags per acre, along with one treatment of oil fungicide mix for the control of black seed toka. And that is free. However, in order for the farmers to be qualified for the support, the farms must be in condition. You must rehabilitate it. If the farm is abandoned or semi-abandoned, you have to clean it up, and the farm must be at a level to show that you're in production and not an abandoned farm.
So you all have started that program, and where is it at now? Have you all given all the fertilizers and the treatment to all the farmers?
Well, with regards to the fertilizer, we have given most of the farmers fertilizer so far. To date, we have given just a little under 9,000 bags of fertilizer, 8,700 plus bags of fertilizer. So the farmers that are remaining are farmers who need to complete the rehabilitation process. And as soon as it's completed, then they would get the fertilizer. For the oil, we have given a little over 12,000 liters of oil, which is about half of our production, of our acreage so far. But the balance of the farmers, as soon as the areas become due for treatment, then the material will be available.
But I want to bring in Peters here, because the control of the black seed toka, I want you to tell St. Lucian what it is, one, and two, For effective control, what is required? Because if your neighbor is not doing what is supposed to do, the good agricultural practices, so take us through that, please.
Well, for black sigatoka disease control, the preferred method is an integrated approach method.
Okay.
What we have realized is that the use of oil alone will not sufficiently control black sigatoka for you. Now, globally, what is happening, as you have the change in climate, the increase in temperature, on my observation, you realize that normally during the dry season, you have less moisture. So it's a fungus. So normally in the dry season, you don't have problem with fungal diseases. Now, the oil, a lot of people believe, well, the oil is a fungicide. Now, when you have fungicide means, well, it's going to kill the fungicide.
The fungus.
But, right, but the oil is not a fungicide. The oil is like a fungistat. It will sort of reduce the spread of the organism on the leaves. Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, in the dry season, it's not a problem because high temperature, the fungus is under control. But as you approach the rainy season, that is where it's a problem because leaf wetness is a critical factor in the development of the fungus. Mm-hmm. Now, the fungus produces both by spores, and you have it's both sexual and asexual reproduction in the spores. Now, when you are not able to control probably the spores, remember when it's raining, the fungus tend to spread on the leaves because of the rain.
Right.
Now, again, through the production of spores, the spores can travel long distances. So it's critical to have, as I said, an integrated approach. With an integrated approach, you look at all the activities that will sort of reduce the spread, that will be able to control the disease. Things like drainage, as I said, moisture is critical. If you are able to remove the excess moisture in the field, yes, you can control the fungus. If you do your proper field sanitation, plant density, you have more air circulation. The more air circulation you have, the better it is in terms of control of the disease. As I said, oil alone will not control the disease. As Mr. Junkie said, farmers' input is very important. Even though you go out there and you advise, you give the farmer all the sound advice, if the farmer is not adhering to whatever advice that is given, you're going to end up with problems. Because again, with black sigatoka, you cannot spray one farm. Right. If you spray in an area, you have to spray the whole area. Now again, for black sigatoka, we have very few fungicides available for black sigatoka. And the worst thing to happen is that if you have fungicide resistant, now there are about 6 fungicides available for use in black sigatoka. Now if there is fungicide resistant, it means that fungicide, it has to be withdrawn from the market, from the fields for example, a year or 2. Now, if you remove, for example, 2 fungicides, you are left with 4. It makes the controlling this disease more critical. So, as I said, it's an integrated, it's a holistic approach where you do all the practices that you are advised to do, and then you are able to control this disease.
Mr. Fessel, give me a farmer's perspective of the control of the black sigatoka.
I think those farmers who are now or who have continued to produce bananas, I think have a very good understanding of what the control methods or the approach ought to be. With the involvement of the supply of oil as regularly as it is now, to an extent you see farmers making a concerted effort to ensure that they do what is necessary to control the black sigatoka. Now, you see the understanding from a farmer perspective is if you're in the business of producing bananas, you need to be able to sell bananas to generate cash flow that would allow you to continue to do what is necessary to control black sigatoka. Mm-hmm. And more often you see there is a breakdown in that cycle when the farmer is not able to dispose of the volumes that he has put so much effort in producing, mm-hmm. and him not being able to sell it. It affects his ability to continue to do all of the requisite practices that must be done to ensure that the control is effective.
Okay.
But I have seen, and I'm sufficiently convinced at this point, that the greater majority of farmers understand what black sigatoka is to them in terms of how it affects their cash flow and why it's important that they must control it, and that the fact that there is the availability of the fungicide and the oil mix is always readily available, and is to the extent that the farmer doesn't have to be pressured to get it, so to speak, unless it's money that he doesn't have to buy it. But once he has the cash and the oil is always available, he understands that he must use oil to help with the control.
Yeah, I think the farmers have the grip of the control,
yes.
and that is why we are still exporting to the UK.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Unlike the other islands, right?
Yes.
We'll do for our first break.
Okay.
We are watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Don't go away.
When a hurricane is approaching, safety of life and the preservation of livelihoods is most important. We should take heed. Fill 5-gallon buckets and other containers with water prior to the storm. You'll need it to water transplants in the greenhouse if you have lost power. Mulch as many bare rows as possible before the storm. Mulching will help prevent erosion and wind damage, and will also minimize soil splashing into the crop canopy, which can cause disease. Rib mature crops such as tomatoes and melons because they will split after heavy rains. Pick coconuts and consider harvesting cut flowers right before the storm, as they will be easily damaged by rain and wind. Fortify any field trellises so you don't lose the crops they are supporting. Wherever possible, unhang trellis plants and place them to lay flat on the ground. Make sure tractors and other equipment and supplies are secured. Don't leave market baskets, picking crates, dip tape, or irrigation pipes in the field or laying around where they can become missiles in high winds or get washed away by flood waters. And stock up on gas for generators and other needed farm equipment. Remember, this is the hurricane season, and we should be prepared. A message brought to you by the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Physical Planning, Natural Resources, and Cooperatives.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. And of course, we are discussing activities that really affected banana production recently. And as you heard earlier, we spoke about the COVID that affected, and we also heard about the control of the black sigatoka. The BPIP program is well on its way, and of course, so far, farmers have the grasp the handle of the black sigatoka control. Mr. Janki, let's continue with the other pests that really affected the banana production, but I suppose it's under control now. That is the banana mealybug, okay? But before we get into this, I want to ask Mr. Clitus, tell us about the banana mealybug.
Basically, a mealybug is a soft-bodied insect, and they are covered with what is called a white mealy, and they are sucking insects. Now, the level of damage that the mealybug will do on a particular crop will depend on the biomass. When I say biomass, I mean the number of mealybugs you have on your plant. Now again, as we saw with bananas, the banana plant is a perfect host for a mealybug, because you have all the spaces where on the pseudo stem where the mealybug can hide. And as we saw in the dry season, and again, we have had mealybug problems before in bananas, but we were able to control it. But the problem we faced was that the problem with mealybug was not new. And we sort of delayed in terms of applying the control to mealybug infestation out in the field. And as a result, we find the mealybug population was out of control. And during the dry season, as I said, globally, insects, you tend to have insect problem, especially in the dry season. And a lot of research is being done now, and most of the findings are showing, well, in the dry season, especially the drought that we had, it's the perfect condition for multiplication of those insects. And for mealybug now, there are very few chemicals that will control mealybug. The mealybug has what is called a waxy coating. Now, even though you apply pesticides to the mealybug will find a way to repel those pesticides because of the waxy coating it has. Now, as I said, again, an integrated approach to pest management would be the preferred way of controlling the mealybug. You have trade issues, you have pesticide resistance, you have the decision to make which is the best pesticide to use on mealybug. And we were not able to get over this problem during the dry season. And on my observation, this mealybug is now present in almost all the banana growing areas. I've been to Canel, I've been to Roseau, the Mabuya Valley area. If you go up in Babon on plantains, so it's a real problem for us now to control this mealybug. And especially as we heard a few months ago, we had a number of shipments that were rejected in Barbados because of this mealybug.
Good. So, Janky, so from the BPIB standpoint, what were measures that you have put in place to ensure that the control?
Okay, when we realized that we had an upsurge in the level of mealybug in the fields, our officers went ahead and we had farm clinics to sensitize the farmers on the situation and what can be done to control or to manage the levels of mealybug in the fruits. So we had these clinics throughout the island. There was also a small video that was produced by one of our officers to demonstrate to the farmers how to process the fruit, especially if mealybug is present.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So from your standpoint, Mr. Faisal, farmer, exporter, how did you deal with it from a farmer standpoint, and then tell us the effect it had on the export?
Well, certainly it presented a serious challenge to the farmers. And you know, if you go back to the history of bananas, back in the days when we produced 29 tons plus per acre, the integrated pest management approach was in full force. Mm-hmm. I mean, the farmers were permitted to use nematicides, insecticides, which helped the plant root system, the plant's ability to utilize the nutrients in the soil and the fertilizer worked very well. And you had healthy plants producing sizable bunches. You're talking about bunch-to-box ratios of 1.5 boxes per bunch or 2 boxes per bunch. But since the advent of fair trade and the limitation on chemical usage in bananas, we've seen that the level of pest infestation at the field level has grown. And as such, the basis on which fair trade existed was to reduce on the extent to which chemicals was used in bananas.
The harsh chemicals.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw happening is our own production efficiency dropped as a result of that. And so with mealybugs appearing at the level that it did this time around, it was really climaxing a dry spell that started last year. We didn't get so much rain during the rainy season. I mean, I can hardly recall having seen the rivers go down twice or 3 times with heavy downpours. There was rain, but not a lot of rain to have flash flooded it. So what we saw into this dry season was the propensity or the infestation level of mealybugs rising to a level that nobody had seen before. Okay. And the sad reality is that it featured in the bananas, and whereas the UK, you don't make a point of highlighting it as an issue for them, but Barbados, on one occasion, just in a very ad hoc and irresponsible way, I can add, just decided to reject an entire consignment of bananas. And we're talking about almost 3,000 boxes of bananas. And their reason was because of the infestation level, which was beyond their threshold, which was never something that was discussed with even our plant protection, plant quarantine department in St. Lucia. And what we saw coming out of that was, yes, all of the efforts, all of the clinics that were done to help farmers understand what must be done. But here you have a situation where farmers now had to reposition themselves and their operations to capture the control of the mealybug, which necessitated a new discipline in the harvesting and handling operations. It requires a second tub with soap liquid. It required that the farmer would do the field sanitation and apply an insecticide at the field level to ensure that he reduced the population at the field level, but that you find the mealybugs had already found their way to the bunches under the blue bags. And so at harvesting time, again, you had to painstakingly try to use a toothbrush or toothpicks to get mealybugs out of the crown. And to a lot of farmers, that was proving challenging. One, because the amount, if a farmer was used to doing 60 boxes per day with 5 or 6 workers, the 6 workers would probably produce 25 boxes. And his issue is, how do I pay for the people who have come here to work for me? Because 25 boxes would not offset the cost of labor and justify my own effort.
Correct.
So to an extent, you found people not being as vigilant as they should. And even though those interventions were in fact made, we continued with the problem to the extent that we ended up having 4 consecutive shipments rejected in Barbados. 4.
So at what point did the Department of Agriculture come in as far as the research division?
No, it was almost instantly. At the same time of that consignment being rejected in Barbados, all hands were on deck. I mean, there was one consignment that was returned. The vessel actually went to Barbados and they didn't allow one box to be offloaded off the vessel. The entire vessel was returned to St. Lucia, you see. And I think that situation, to my mind, underscores a bigger issue in terms of trade relations between the two islands, yes, and all of the corresponding issues that it will bring about. But surely what we saw happening there was a breakdown of confidence in a system that would now put the farmer at a difficult end, and me as the middleman exporter at a worse off position, because to this day I have not been able to pay 115 or 120 farmers the monies that they were expecting from the sale of bananas at the time.
So what happened to those shipments that you lost? The
shipments were they were disposed of in Barbados on 2 occasions. They were fumigated once. I had to pay for the cost of fumigation, but didn't get the returns from what came out of the fumigation. There was one time the entire vessel returned, so I had to pay. There's a charge on the vessel to return to St. Lucia, and the bananas had to be disposed of through farmers with pigs and animals. And then you had one time they had to burn the fruit at the ports in Barbados. And the last time, we don't quite understand what happened. They allowed the ripeners to take in the bananas, re-wash them in Barbados. And then now, in the soap liquid solution,
which you all did already here.
Which we did already, but they were not satisfied that because again, the sightings of mealybugs at the point of inspection by the plant quarantine department in Barbados was beyond their threshold.
Okay, can you explain the threshold levels?
Basically what happened when you exporting, the quarantine officers will supposed to come and take a 10% sample. Now, normally in science, 10% is supposed to be across the board. So a 10% will probably give you an idea as to what is happening in the entire consignment. But the problem with mealybug is that whilst you may not see the mealybug, remember you have eggs. So yes, it will take a few days for the eggs to develop. But what he's saying there, probably after, yes, they were bought in Barbados and then they went to the ripening room and then they started seeing mealybug again.
Okay.
Now, the other impact of the problem of the mealybug was, as he said, fumigation. Yes, in Barbados right now, they're rejecting the bananas. And in England, the problem is there, but what is happening is being fumigated. Now, when the fumigation is done, that is a cost to the farmer. Okay. Probably money that the farmer should have been receiving, now it's a cost to pay for fumigation. Now, the chemical that they're using for fumigation, it's a chemical, methyl bromide. Methyl bromide is a chemical that was supposed to have been phased out globally.
Oh God.
So I don't think, yes, it was done in Barbados, but if persons, it's an organophosphate, persons now are worried about organophosphate. A lot of persons don't want you to use organophosphate on the fruits that,
so they will not buy the fruit
that they're going to eat. So we find ourselves in a situation now, we are left with the only, what I'm saying now is that we have to field sanitation. We have to go back in the field and correct the problem out in the field. It's not a problem that will be solved in Barbados. We have to solve the problem. And again, it's a phytosanitary issue. You're not supposed to send pests, quarantine pests to another country.
Yes,
so it's within the purview, because Barbados, they have plantain, they have other nusa species. They have banana species. Right. So it's a way of protecting the agriculture. So we cannot blame them for this. As I said, we have to right now go out in the field and solve the problem. When we had the problem with the hibiscus pink mealybug, what we did, we went and we bought the Anagyrus camali, which is the organism that is going to control some of the mealybug for you. But what is happening right now? Remember, in the 1960s and 1950s, persons were not using pesticides. Pest control was an ecological problem. Correct. You had all the beneficial organisms out in the field that were able to control those insects. But what has happened? Because we've been using so much chemicals and so on, we have been destroying nature. And right now what we're doing, we're depending on chemicals alone to control those organisms for us. And the chemicals, the organisms are building resistance against those things. And they are not working. Now again, for mealybug, an approved way of controlling mealybug is through biological control, where you get the biological agent. Because for every organism, there's what is called a natural enemy. The natural enemy will not be in St. Lucia, it may be in Zimbabwe, it may be in some other country, but you have to find the natural enemy. But in banana production, because we're using lots of fungicides to control the Bacillus tucker, so it will be very difficult now for you to spend money on those bio agents, bring it in, and then the farmer is going to use the pesticide, which is going to destroy the organism.
So, Mr. Fessel, you lost the Barbados market?
Well, yes, because what has happened, our inability to satisfy the market demands at the time as a result of the shortfalls, they've had to resort to alternative suppliers, and they've gone to Suriname, who is now, well, they're the ones dominating the market as it stands.
Okay, so we will go to an instructional video that we prepared to end this segment so that people can see exactly what they should do or what was done in the control of the banana mealybug.
Bonjour, toute femme fig Saint-Lucie. Moi c'est M. Steven Monchery et puis M. Joshua Suraj, officier BPIP en ministre agricole en Saint-Lucie. Qu'on peut déjà connaître et puis j'attends. C'est juste là nous avons un problème qui est très sérieux en fig. Mealybug. Mealybug là qui a affecté fig là et puis babad pas vle c'est Tibet ça en les fig là. Yo déjà double importation fig en Saint-Lucie. Tout le temps nous pas contrôler problème ça là. Qui manière nous ka contrôler problème mealybug là? Là il y a 4 différentes manières nous ka contrôler mealybug là. Premièrement, c'est mealybug là ka serré en bas ces vieux feuilles là en les pieds fig là. So regardez bien ouais. So c'est pour nettoyer pieds fig là bien. Yo ka serré en bas ça et then les fig là jeté yo ka monter en les yo ka attraper koyo yo ka coller en les pattes fig là. So on est pour nettoyer pieds fig là bien. C'est une manière. L'autre manière, c'est pour servir diaphine qui neuf. Plus vite vous mettez en lèvre fig là, plus meilleur pour pêcher bug là, monter en lèvre fig là. Aussi, on est pour chaîne habitation en net. Parce que c'est bug là qui reste en bas zeb là. On est pour assurer ou spray et pas bas fig là, pani zeb. C'est la première manière où on contrôler milibug là. Comme on a bien pour assurer milibug là pas trop pécoy en les pas de fig là. Si vous passez à diaphine neuf, et diaphine qui traité, il pas qu'à empêcher milibug là en tout en fig là. Quand on les fig ça. Fig ça ni lailon en lay, mais lailon ça pas traité et puis pas lailon neuf. Et ouais, il still ni milibug là. So il est important pour servir la fig neuf et diaphine qui traité pour protéger fig là. L'autre manière où on contrôler milibug là, ou ça servi en chimique. Ou ka servi en chimique, nous ka créer neem oil. Ou ka spray pied fig là et pour ka spray ce fig là. OK, il can empêcher milibug là rester en les pattes fig là. Ça c'est deuxième manière. Troisième manière nous ça servi pour contrôler milibug là. So nous ça servi on l'autre bête. Nous pourquoi ça nous c'est manière nous ça fait mais nous pourquoi faire ka servir l'autre bête pour manger, c'est ça qui est mauvais. Pour empêcher ouvrir les pattes fig là. C'est une manière pour pas pour servir chimique. Et quatrième manière, première manière, c'est là où on harvest fig là, ou on nettoyer fig là et laver bien. Après ça là, nous faire un practical à ce qui manière pour laver fig là et laver bien.
Ok, bonjour, moi c'est Joshua Suraj. Et on a fait selection. Je select fig là pour montrer la manière de contrôler le milibug là from selection. Ok, pour vous faire le select. Vous select fig là. Ou pas select fig là trop gros because pour ça contrôle laver fig là bien on peut select les 5 grains, 6 grains. OK, plus select gros, plus difficile pour ça laver milibug là from. So, on select couper ça là. So regardez on va milibug là dedans fig là. Comme il y a les feuilles qui, make sure qu'il y a les feuilles qui net, comme il y a les feuilles qui n'est milibug. Okay. Oui, ou quand même fig là, lorsqu'il est, ou quand même drain à les feuilles là pour tâche là, pour at least en 3 pour 5 minutes. Ok, so moi fini avec selection là, nous allons aller en baf pendant pour laver fig là. Ok, nous avons fini select fig là, nous allons aller dans baf pendant, mais le fig là de baf pendant. Là, on a traité fig là pour milibug, on est pour les différents, on est pour PPE, on est pour les apron, on est pour les gloves, ok, pour laver fig là. Alright, là on a 3 bagages on est pour servir pour contrôler milibug. Là, on est pour un long brush, un petit long brush, c'est pour passer en fait, pas de fig là pour tirer milibug là, on est pour un toothbrush qui net, qui brise là pas pour trop wet, pour molle, et qu'on est pour liquid soap là. Liquid soap là, il est pour lemon flavor, ok? Lemon liquid soap. On met about 20 ml dans bath pan de l'eau, ok? So, nous allons mettre liquid soap là, brise. Et l'autre bath pan là, l'autre bath pan là, c'est niosilic alum là. So, on a 2 bath pan. Il y en a pour liquid soap là, il y en a pour niosilic alum là. Ok, c'est fongicide là pour laver fig là, pour traiter crown là. Alright, so on va make sure we met l'eau. So pour liquid soap là ça travaille bien. Et nous va prendre pâte figo à présent, on va commencer à faire pâte figo. On va prendre ce cluster, on va mettre dedans baf pan, premier baf pan là. On va mettre 2 clusters, on va mettre about 5 clusters, 6 on va mettre top cluster dedans. OK? On finit. On va garder en fait là. So quand on est deux brushes là. Premier brush là, on va garder. On va garder en fait ces pattes là pour make sure tout milibug, on va contrôler tout milibug, tout pièce tisée, ouais, pièce paille blanc, ouais. So, on pour laver, bien laver. Then, on va garder bout li. Make sure on garde bout li. So, ouais, pièce paille blanc là encore, bout là. On va make sure on tire avec toothbrush. Then, on va mettre l'autre baf pan. Ok, on va garder les fait ces pattes là. So, pièce millibug, on va tirer nettoyer. On peut bien prêter en nettoyer parce que on pas vle yon monter l'autre pays. Depuis yon seul il y a trop. OK. On doit garder en bout là. So, pièce millibug quoi servir toothbrush là pour nettoyer, pour tirer tout. On va bien laver. On met l'autre baf pan. So tout cluster on garder fait même bail là, on répète même bail là tout cluster. Là on finit là. On va tirer l'autre solution niosilic alum là. Donc on met la table là ready pour pas. Quoi style vie garder encore. Par après pièce chance make sure vie garder sur pièce millibag garder encore. Et puis on va mettre la table là pour pas.
C'est fixe ça qui est la table là. C'est fig qui a pas pour pack. Yo pas ni pièce millibug en l'air yo. On ka juste vier réfléchir timide ba ou à tout ça nous fait pour matin. Because c'est important pour nous chembe market fig la babad. Si nous pas ça chembe ça, babad ka acheter l'autre côté pour vendre fig yo. Et pour majorité of farmer en ici à region 4, c'est regionally yo ka vendre food yo babad. Pour mieux moi dou nous ni pour la 4 manières nous ça contrôler. Première manière c'est assurer pièce fig la net. C'est millibag la ka sewe en bas c'est vieux feuille là et pas laisser pied fig là. So on pour assurer pied fig la net. Deuxième manière où nous ka servir c'est pour servir diaphine neuf qui traité. Là on servir diaphine en royon coup que mikla que diaphine ka fini et puis pas ka contrôler ces millibag là. Troisième manière nous ça fait nous ça servi en Tibet nous quoi que ça en anglais biological control mais nous pouvons investir ça so nous ka servi après ça nous ka servi en chimique nous ka couiller neem oil nous ka spray bitation et spécifique là pour contrôler millibug là et quatrième et dernière manière que nous montons en chez là c'est jour ou à couper fig là assurer ou laver fig là bien. On make sure on y deux bathtub, yon pour de l'eau savon et puis yon pour alum et puis fungal flour. Là on finit bien laver fig là, make sure on y brush ou deux brush, yon petit brush qui molle pour ça nettoyer en ces fonds de fig là. Plus petit ou couper ces pattes fig là 5 6 ou ka ça laver fig là plus meilleur. So make sure ou fait ça et tout fait ça, nous pas de pièce problème et puis millibug babad et tout farmer et puis c'est exporters là qui est happy. Comment j'adore devant? Merci monsieur Steve mon chéri et puis Joshua Suraj. Nous sommes officiers BPIP en ministre agricole. Pour plus d'informations, contactez bureau BPIP à Limo 468 4160. Et bien on s'est contacté pièce BPIP field officer en région. Merci.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. I hope that you enjoyed this little instructional video that was played. And of course, to date, I'm thinking here that we have it under control to a certain level. I'm hoping that moving forward, there will be some level of discussion between St. Lucia and Barbados to ensure that trade, is looked at in a different manner, and there should be dialogue and to ensure that whatever problems are there should be resolved in a very technical manner. So I'm very happy that you saw this video. So moving forward, we're looking at effects that affected the production of bananas. And then, Mr. Junkie, let us go to one of the drought we had this year. That was one of the worst droughts we ever faced in St. Lucia. Tell us about this from BPIP standpoint, and what measures will be taken down the road.
Okay, well, certainly this drought was one of the worst droughts that we had experienced in recent history in terms of the banana industry. And I do not think that the farmers were prepared for such a drought either. And we realized that it if I could say, destroyed the farms, a number of farms. Approximately 54% of our farms were out of production during that period of time. And the remaining 46% still had significant decline in production levels. The only part of the island where we really had any production is the Crownlands Deglo area, where we have this high water table, so production do not really go down during the dry season. As a matter of fact, production goes up in that area during the dry season. But we realized that throughout the island, most of our farms' production went down significantly. And to mitigate that, I mean, there's nothing that we could have done this year, but in going forward, what we have done was to order some irrigation equipment, drip lines, pump, and we are hoping to bring back irrigation in the Roseau area, parts of the Mabia Valley, 4 canals, Trumase, and some other areas where we have built some small dams in Piton, that's in the Patience Monrepo area, Moro, that's in Loro Tiroche, and Esperance, that's the Bellevue area, to get these farms irrigated. And we're hoping that these systems can be online before the year ends. So come next year, during the dry season, these farms could be irrigated and would not have would not see what we saw this year in terms of the decline in production and even farms being abandoned because of the dry season.
I'm hearing all this, and what came to mind, especially in the Roseau Valley. We spent so much money building this dam, and where's the use of it? Sad, very sad, okay? Then we built another one in the Deglo area, and again the farmers kept saying, we do not want irrigation, we want drainage, because the water table there is very high, okay? And look at it, Yeah. I mean, and look now, we need the water, especially in the Roseau area, all right? And just, it's there,
Well, at the time when the system was put in place, the farmers did not appreciate the irrigation system.
Exactly.
But now they are all calling for it.
They've been calling for a long time. They've been calling for it for a long time, But sadly, I'm happy to know that at least it's going to be, revitalized and farmers are going to be using it. I'm happy also what I want to find out is that I hear you mention bringing in the equipment and stuff like that. Are the farmers going to be paying for this?
The plan right now is to give it to the farmers free. However, the farmers would have to put in what we call the sweat capital. They would have to put in the labor to install the system. But the equipment would be coming in free.
Okay, all right. Mr. Faisal, how did the drought affect you as a farmer? And of course, I'm sure by extension it affected you from an export standpoint.
Okay, from a farmer perspective, when you have dry spells, farmers generally don't feel motivated to do much on the farm because the end result of the effort you put in is not likely to succeed in the way you would want it to. I mean, you have to maintain your farm. You would have to do your propping, some of what you must do to save the bunches in the context of bananas, to save the bunches that you've seen the plant through so that you can see it through harvesting. But this year, what we saw happening as the dry spell was maybe unprecedented, and it's more in recent memory. You would speak to different farmers and they will tell you they've seen worse droughts than that. But in recent times, we've not seen one as bad. The fear, however, is having listened to Mr. Junkie speak of the irrigation support that is likely to come. What I have noticed myself, and I've recorded it, is that sadly, our agriculture, if it's not likely to endure another dry spell like this, when our rivers cannot even sustain their flow. I mean, I took photos in the Mabuya Valley, in the lower course of the river, and there was no water in the river. It's reduced to a mere trickle of a drain. And you see where farmers had pumps positioned on the river banks. They had no pumps because there was no water. It was just sand.
No water.
You know. So we need to, from a national perspective, we need to look at the issues of reforestation in a sense, because you have a lot of abundant farms. A lot of farmers have moved away from bananas, or moved away, well, from time they move away from bananas, the other crops they've intercrop, like grapefruits and oranges and the permanent tree crops, are all dying. A lot of parasites are taking over because some of those, because you know they needed the husbandry and the agronomic practices that would enhance the life of the plants. They're no longer there. So somewhere in the mix, you recognize there is need to cause some forestries or to rejuvenate our ravines and streams, so that you can have to move away from just flash floods, but to have more retention of water in the catchment areas, so that the rivers can flow even in the dry spell. At least you can have some water to irrigate, because it's one thing to have irrigation equipment, and it's quite another thing not to be able to extract water from the rivers. And this year, I made it a point of observing the Wani River was dry completely. The Mabuya River, when you look at Mabuya Valley, the potential that it has in its catchment, to have reached that stage in the lower course of the river, not to see water flowing, speaks volumes to the state of affairs as it relates to that situation. And you have Tamazo, for example, that somewhere in the mix might be necessary at some point to look at establishing a dam for agriculture, because then you have the potential of the Mabuya Valley as a valley, rich valley lands, not being able to be utilized in the dry season because the rivers don't have water. And that's quite unfortunate. So, I mean, we're here making that observation is critical, but the extent to which it makes any headway is the extent to which the relevant authorities within the state recognizes that and somehow can work around. I mean, look at Haiti. Haiti is planting forestry. They're reforesting some of their dry lands, and maybe to an extent something needs to be done to look at that aspect of it. So as far as banana production is concerned, the first set of rains coming out of a dry spell like that, what you see happening is the extent of dehydration of plants. All banana plants with good sized bunches are snapping. 1 week we had plantain that we couldn't sell. We didn't have a market to buy. We had more than we could have sold. And by the next week, we didn't have enough plantain for the demand of the market. Not that we didn't have plantains, but a significant percentage of the plantains just snapped. And that was it. They were no longer marketable, and we didn't have available for the market.
Great.
You know, so really the trade itself in the Barbados market and St. Kitts, the markets that I am trading with, especially Barbados, that they would require 3,000 boxes last week.
Okay, we're here for another break. You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
Banana farmers, remember me? I destroyed the Gros Michel banana variety some years ago. Now, my cousin, Tropical Race 4 or TR4, a Fusarium wilt banana disease, is on the horizon in a more aggressive form and can wipe out the banana industry in a flash. Be vigilant. Don't bring any banana plants or plant tissue into the island. Report any unusual symptoms on your banana plots to the Department of Agriculture at telephone 468-5600 or the extension officer in your area. Remember, protect our vital banana industry.
Welcome back to the program. As we're about to embark on our closing segment, I think we need to emphasize or re-emphasize on the horizon there is a Fusarium wilt disease, which we call Tropical Race 4, in short TR4. You have been seeing an ad that have been running for about 2 months now to sensitize the public about that disease. And to speak about this disease is, of course, Mr. Cletus Alexander to tell us something about that disease.
Well, TR4 is a soil-borne fungal disease. It affects the plant by entering through the roots. So when it enters the root of the plant, it affects what is called the vascular bundles. Now in the vascular bundle, as we know in science, you have the phloem that bring food and the xylem that take in the water. So when this happens, the plant is not able to transport nutrient up to the leaves. And again, the food that is produced in the leaves are not able to get through the entire plant. So you find the plant is going to wilt and the plant is going to die. Now symptoms can vary. Now the older leaves, they'll turn yellow and they will collapse around the plant, forming what is called a skirt, everyone mentioned. Yeah. And the younger leaves will stay healthy. And again, at the later stage, you may have a situation where, yeah, the plant is going to fruit, but the fruits are going to be affected. But in terms of the impact of this disease, this is one of the most destructive diseases ever known to plant pathology. Wow. Yes, it is one of them. Remember in the 1950s, we had what is called the Gros Michel variety. Race 1 destroyed the Gros Michel variety. Now race 2, we have race 2 presently affecting the Macambo. Race 3 is not affecting bananas, but race 4 is affecting all species of Musa.
Wow.
Right. Now we were lucky in the 1950s in that when it decimated the Gros Michel, we were able to use the Cavendish. Now with the Cavendish now very susceptible to this disease, we have a lot of problems now. You have a lot of researchers now doing what is called genetic modification of the banana plant to tolerate this disease. You have researchers working on what is called biological agent, bioagent like Trichoderma species, Bacillus. These are organisms that you can introduce in the fields that is going to control the pathogen for you. It's not 100% certain, but a lot of research is happening now. Now, a small country like ours, where the banana is very important in terms of export, it's a very important component of our food security. A lot of persons in St. Lucia, we like our banana and saltfish. We like to eat our macambo. We like to eat our plantain and fish and so on. So all these things, they're threatened. Globally, banana production is on the decline because of TR4. There are no chemicals presently to control this disease. As we saw with black seal tobacco, we were lucky. There are lots of fungicides that we can use. But with TR4 now, it's a different kettle of fish.
So is that his solution now, Balfini? Is that
well, as I said, we have to be prepared.
Yeah.
The best form of control of this disease is prevention.
Right.
If we can prevent this disease from coming into the country, presently the disease was identified in Colombia. A disease which started in Asia, in Taiwan. It spread through Southeast Asia, Africa, and now it's in our doorstep, Colombia.
Wow.
So we have to move against time. So presently what we have done, we have a TR4 task force. At our meeting, there was a meeting in Dominican Republic where most of the banana producing countries of the Caribbean, we developed an emergency action plan. We also developed a disaster risk reduction plan. So all these documents are sitting there. We need to move with haste. We need to adopt those documents. We need to review those documents. We need to go out there, take whatever sections in the document that we feel that we can implement in St. Lucia, and go out in the field, do our outreach, educate the farmers out there as to the impacts of TR4, prepare them. We have to, the port of entry, we have to introduce food bath because it's a soil-borne disease. tourism is a very important pathway for us. You have persons visiting a lot of countries like Colombia and so on. The shoes may have soil,
vehicles, or kind of thing, tools and all.
Tool.
Yeah.
So we need to be proactive. As I said, the best form of control for TR4 is preparedness. We have to prevent this thing from coming into the country.
Gentlemen, well, we have exhausted the time. It's fast. We move very, very quickly. So I'm very thankful for this discussion. I think it was very lively. I think the viewers out there, I'm sure they appreciate that discussion. We'll do it again because we need, it's an ongoing, discussion. Trail, TR4, definitely. So Janki, thank you. Faisal, Cletus, thank you very much for being here. You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. Thank you for viewing and continue to watch this program because we bring you information that is relevant to you. Remember, agriculture is our business and eat fresh. St. Lucia's best. I'm Philip Sidney and I want to thank NTN and their team for getting this program live in studio. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.